What is up, ladies and gentlemen, Citizen JB, and today I want to talk about Metroid Prime Remastered, also known as Metroid Prime, back in 2002 when this game initially released on the Nintendo GameCube. And what really makes this game, to me, as a gamer, and what I really thought about this game initially when I first played it, I thought it was absolutely amazing. But there are some points I would really like to talk about this game in particular, because what really made this game a much defining game as it was on the Nintendo GameCube, but it was definitely one of the first Metroid games that brought Bounty Hunter Samus Aran in the 3D realm, and is one of the crowning achievements of the Nintendo GameCube's library back in 2002. Now, this is one of the reasons why I think Metroid Prime got a really good, heavily advantage on the Nintendo GameCube platform back in that time, and it still is one of the most memorable games today in 2023 of that on the Nintendo Switch. Not only that, Metroid Prime is defined by its frenetic action and its massively explorable environments, clever puzzle solving, and daunting boss battles that also takes place between the original Metroid and Metroid 2 Return of Samus. That is what's really unique about this game as well, and I think that's why I love this game particularly, because this game series as a whole, of the utmost, provides a really cool, unique type of setting, its lore building, its world building, and vice versa amongst other Metroid fans and games in the series for itself. Metroid Prime was also received acclaim and sold more than 2.8 million copies worldwide, and also won a number of Game of the Year awards, and regarded to be one of the most greatest video games of all time, and remained the highest rated games on Metacritic. Metroid Prime was the first to use 3D computer graphics and utilizing the first-person perspective, and is the fifth main Metroid game. Now, one thing I would really like to put in here too as well is that Kenji Yamamoto, assisted by Koichi Kayuma, composed the music for Prime. The soundtrack contains arrangements of tracks from the previous games in the series because Yamamoto wanted to satisfy old Metroid fans. So that is basically my opener here on Metroid Prime Remastered as a whole, and I really think that that's why I love this series as a whole, and why I love Metroid Prime as a whole as well. I really think that this game was ahead of its time, especially back in 2002, because, I actually initially was not thinking about getting a Nintendo Switch. I've always wanted to play, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I always wanted to play Metroid Prime again. And now, once Metroid Prime initially released for the Nintendo Switch as a remastered game, I'm like, yep, you know what? It's time for me to get not get another handheld, but it's time for me to get a handheld, much more than I am more of a console gamer myself. But however, the Nintendo Switch OLED, which I do actually have, which is a Splatoon 3 limited edition, is totally badass. And that's what I love about Nintendo, though, too, is that I feel like they know what they're doing in certain aspects and concepts when it comes to gaming in general, amongst other platforms like the Sony PlayStation or the Microsoft Xbox Series X or S, or even on PC. But however, I think what made Metroid Prime really so memorable, especially when it came on the Nintendo GameCube in 2002, this game is one of the most intricately well-designed games I have ever imagined, other than it being an FPS and so many different types of aspects. But another thing what I love about this game as a whole is that there's a lot of explorable environments in this game. You are able to collect any types of power-ups. But however, when you first initially play this game at the beginning of the game, as it usually was always stated back in 2002 on the Nintendo GameCube, you actually ended up losing all your upgrades. Whether it was your grappling hook, your beams, or your visors, but you're actually able to collect these specific items within the world of Metroid Prime Remastered on the Switch and gain all your powers back as a whole. And I think that's why Metroid Prime Remastered is definitely one of my favorite games of all time, especially when it comes to a Nintendo GameCube platform game, as it is. But I think this game really made the pinnacle of gaming as a whole in 2002, especially on the Nintendo GameCube. Now, I think when it came to Metroid Prime, is that this game was... like I said, it was absolutely amazing at what it was able to initialize to do for itself as a game and as a FPS action adventure platformer game as it is. but it was the fact that how lore friendly this game really is. Other than it taking place after the events of the original Metroid and before Metroid 2 Samus Returns, or Return of Samus, excuse me, is that, this game it provides a lot of distinction of what the original 2D platform Metroid games that we've had known to love back from the day. And I think that's why I think this game series as a whole, other than Metroid Prime itself, really provides a really unique type of way of just, getting back into the franchise again, getting back into the old school type of mechanics that we've known and loved from these games. And I would say I think Metroid Prime really does a really remarkable job of what it wants to do in terms of its gameplay style. One thing in particular I would really like to put in here too when it comes to this game really provides a lot of replayability to it. I mean, back in the day of 2002, if I remember correctly, we did not have any modes called New Game Plus back in the day as we do now on most generative single-player games, which if it's Horizon Zero Dawn, Forbidden West, or any other single-player games. But we didn't have this type of mode back in that time in 2002. But like I said, this game does provide a lot of replayability to it because, like I say, it's the lore friendly. It's the way how the game just really interacts with certain types of objects within the world. You are able to scan certain things and get some of that lore. And that's what makes this game so fascinating. And that's why I love this game in general. Now, I think when it comes to Metroid Prime, I think this game it was definitely, like I said, it was definitely one of the most pinnacle games of its time back in 2002. Because, we normally didn't have a lot of FPSs back in 2002, but I'm sure that that is a little bit of a lie because we had other FPSs out there. But I think when it came to action adventure, first-person shooter platformers like Metroid Prime, I think that Metroid Prime just did an amazing job in all fronts in that term of that type of category. And that's why I think when it comes to Metroid Prime, it just goes to show you that this game really utilizes a lot of great mechanics and concepts of the first-person shooter genre in that time on the Nintendo GameCube. That's why I believe that when it came to Nintendo GameCube was actually one of its greatest selling points back in 2002. But initially, I believe the selling of units of the Nintendo GameCube kind of dwindled, but I can't really say how much it has dwindled. But overall, back in 2002, this console was one of the most highly rated consoles back in 2002. So I think that's another reason why I think that's why Metroid Prime actually ended up being one of the greats of that time. Now, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes actually ended up being a much more higher successor sequel to Metroid Prime 1. And that game actually ended up getting a lot of high praise as well. And I really can't per se of what I want to say about Metroid Prime 2. But however, I think Metroid Prime 1 does an amazing job in all fronts in so many different types of aspects and concepts as to where this game is coming from when it comes to its platforming mechanics, its first-person shooter mechanics, and the way how you're able to scan certain types of objects in this game as before, whether if it's creatures or lore or objects that you are able to pertain for Samus Aran as the bounty hunter in this game, and you are able to provide that type of specific types of lore in this game. And I think that's why I think Metroid Prime is definitely one of my favorites when it came to the Nintendo GameCube era. However, I really think that what made Metroid Prime one of the best, in my personal opinion, other than in 2002 as a shooter as a whole or action adventure, some role-playing RPG elements in the game, there is. I do believe that. But however, what I really love about this game more so is that you are actually able to get, like I said, you are able to gain certain types of abilities. You are able to obtain different types of beams, whether if it's like the wave beam, which is going to be like a purplish type of thing. There's like a plasma beam, which is made by fire, and you have an ice beam, which is made by ice, and then you have the original beam, as you already seem to be fit, as your main primary shooting mechanic for Samus Aran. And that's one of the things I really love about Metroid Prime as a whole, other than it being an FPS action-adventure role-playing game to a certain way, but that's what makes this game so unique. Another thing I would say is that when it comes to this game in most aspects and concepts is the fact that I love the way how this game really utilizes its mechanics of turning it into a morph ball. You are able to obtain other different types of morph balls as well, much like, you know, getting some bombs that you are able to do when you go into morph ball mechanic as well. And that's what's really cool though too, because you have to go, there are certain areas in the game of Metroid Prime to where you had to initially unlock certain areas in order to get these specific type of items. It's not going to be like an all-out, free all-out, you know, being able to venture out and get the certain types of items as much as you want to. It's not like that. In any specific type of area in the game, you are able to obtain these specific items if you have the proper either equipment or the proper power-ups to do so to obtain these specific items. And that's where I was going to initially say, when it comes to Metroid Prime, you basically have to utilize how you're going to. That's what I was going to say though too, because with its clever puzzle solving, is that it's how you are going to solve it and how are you able to, you know, complete that puzzle mechanic and being able to get that certain type of item. Now, another thing what I love about Metroid Prime as a whole, too, is the fact that what this game really, it does an amazing job of its structure, of its gameplay mechanics, the way how the enemies look in this game as it provides, and how it utilizes to a certain type of degree of what each beam that you are able to acquire for your beam cannon for Samus Aran. And that's where this game really falls into a unique type of category, into an artistic category, because you do kind of have to be a little bit tactile. That's one of the greatest things what I love about Metroid Prime, is that it's a very tactical type of FPS other than being an action-adventure itself. But it's where I fell in love with the original 2D action-adventure platformers back in the day, and I'm really greatly to say, I think Metroid Prime Remastered does a lot of things justice in its own type of regard, to the most at least. But however, I think when it comes to Metroid Prime, this game is, I would say, like I said, it's definitely one of my favorites. I really think that this game really holds true today, even on the Nintendo Switch. I am thoroughly enjoying my Switch. I have not played much of it lately, but I actually ended up playing some of it last night. And I'm telling you, Metroid Prime really brings back that nostalgia. I love the nostalgia factor when it comes to any kind of games, whether if you're on console, whether if you're on Nintendo or Sega Genesis or any other games or game consoles that we've had in the past previous years. And it's amazing of how far we have come when it comes to these types of games in general. And that's why I think Metroid Prime, like I said, it was a pinnacle of its time, and it still holds true today. And that's why I think Metroid Prime really just does a lot of things that I really wasn't quite expecting when I first initially played this game back on the Nintendo GameCube days. And it's great to show and say that this game still holds up, especially on the Nintendo Switch. Now, one thing I would really like to put in here, though, too, is I love everything of what this game really provides and what it really is going to give you in terms of not just its replayability, but it's the way how this game really utilizes to its utmost potential of being one of the greatest games ever made on the Nintendo GameCube, even today on the Nintendo Switch. Whether if you own the Lite version or the OLED or even the original, like I said, this game is absolutely gorgeous on the Switch. I have never seen a remastered that has done so right amongst from Quake 2 Remastered that actually ended up coming out earlier this year when QuakeCon 2023 ended or even began, because I was thoroughly excited for that game as well. And that's one of the greatest things when it comes to remasters. I think when there are games that are remastered correctly and are done right, I do believe that Metroid Prime Remastered just did an excellent job in all fronts when it comes to remasters. Like I said, this game is absolutely gorgeous. I know I'm going back to this again. I'm repeating myself, so my apologies on that. But however, I just really think that Metroid Prime Remastered just does an amazing job for what it wants to do, and I think it really does it well. Overall, what I will say is that I really think that Metroid Prime just does an excellent job in not just in everything, but what it really utilizes as a whole and as a game as itself on the Nintendo Switch. Even like I said, it still holds up. But what I will say is that all the places that I thoroughly enjoyed in the original Metroid Prime on the GameCube, I will say they did an amazing job on remastering this game from level to level to level, and it greatly shows. I'm thoroughly impressed of what they were able to do, you know, bringing the textures up a little bit, bringing some of the pixelizations, and the soundtrack is still one of the best I've ever heard from a Metroid game, and I really think that Metroid Prime just does an amazing job with that too. I love the audio. I think the audio just does an amazing job. I love the way how it utilizes itself from each specific type of level in the game, and it's fascinating. I am a huge audiophile and videophile when it comes to video games. I mean, I do in gameplay as well, but when it comes to video games in general, I love the way how audio is very much utilized in a video game, even when it comes to its visual fidelity or graphics fidelity, and it greatly shows when it comes to Metroid Prime Remastered. And so what I will say here, though, too, I really think that this game just does... It's amazing. When I first started getting back into this game on my Switch, I'm just like, oh my god, I can't wait to play this game again, because this game, like I said, it just brings back all those fondest memories back from 2002, and it just comes back as a huge, big factor for me as a gamer on the Nintendo Switch. And what I will say, I do highly recommend playing this game if you want to replay this game again in this newer generation of hardware that we have currently, whether if you're on the Switch or on the PlayStation or Xbox. But if you want to play Metroid Prime, the Switch OLED is the best way to go, in my personal opinion. But however, I really think that Metroid Prime still, like I said, it still holds up true to what this game initially did back in 2002. And it's greatly appreciated that this company that made this remastered just did an amazing job. Rare Studios actually ended up being the original studio that made Metroid Prime, but Nintendo actually only helped publish it. But overall, I think that Rare Studios just did an amazing job in all fronts of what Metroid Prime it is today on the Nintendo Switch. And I really think that when it comes to Metroid Prime, it's the fact that it's an FPS with certain types of different mechanics, and you know, I am a sucker when it comes to first-person shooters. I have always loved them. I always have and always will. And I think that's where Metroid Prime really falls under, not just of it being an FPS, it's the fact that you're able to obtain a lot of different types of things in this game. You know, like I said, it's lore-friendly, it's user-friendly when it comes to any kind of games in general on the Nintendo GameCube or the Switch. And I really think that this game, like I said, it still holds up. So what I will say is that, you know, I really think I would greatly like to appreciate the company that remade this remastered for the Nintendo Switch. And like I said, I love the visual fidelity of this game, and that's one of the greatest things that I appreciate when it comes to companies that know how to do remasters properly. As I mentioned before, when it came to the Quake 2 Remastered, they did an excellent job. Night Dive Studios actually ended up doing the remastered version for Quake 2, and also did the Quake 1 Remastered 2 years or 3 years ago for the modern consoles as well, much like Quake 2 was, or is on the current consoles that we have now. And that's another thing, though, too, what I greatly appreciate when it comes to companies much like Night Dive Studios or Rare Studios that made the original Metroid Prime, is that remasters are very helpful when they are done correctly. I really think that when it comes to remasters, they're not always going to be the greatest. You know, sometimes I feel like that remasters can be somewhat maybe lazy to a certain type of degree, but Metroid Prime Remastered just does it justice. They've made this game perfectly and flawlessly, and each level that is colorfully well designed. As I previously mentioned about its audio, its visual fidelity, and vice versa, this game just provides a lot of different types of backdrop, motivation. I really love the motivation in Metroid Prime. I love the way how this game just does an amazing job with its exploration. That's one thing I would really like to put in here as well, is the exploration. I think the exploration in this game is very, very key. It's such a key factor when it comes to Metroid Prime or 2 or even 3 for that matter, because that's where the RPG, there are, like I said, there are some RPG elements within the game, but it's just not a pure RPG. And I know what I will say here, though, to Reforged Gaming, I actually really like the way how he talks about certain things. While I do sometimes disagree on what a lot of people are talking about when it comes to games that are not fully RPG, but they will have some RPG elements. And I actually thoroughly believe that 100%, because that's why I was saying that's where Metroid Prime Remastered, or the original Metroid Prime on GameCube, does have some role-playing elements into it. It does. And I'm sure that I'll probably maybe end up getting some flack with this, but I don't care. Overall, what I want us to do here is that I really think that this game, like I said, it's amazing. I have so much fun with it. I love the way how you can scan certain types of areas within the game. You can get a thermal visor, you can get an x-ray visor, you can get different visors within this game. And one thing in particular I would really like to put here, though, too, is that I think what makes this game really interesting as a whole, too, is the fact that this game really utilizes the visors to its utmost potential. And what I mean by that, it provides a certain type of way how you want to eliminate certain types of enemies. Much like, I really don't know what kind of enemies they are, but there are certain enemies that will be able to provide camouflage into the flow of the environment of a specific level within Metroid Prime. And that's why you have to utilize certain types of beams in order to eliminate those types of enemies. And that's another thing that I really greatly appreciate about this game, though, too, is because that is why I think Metroid Prime is one of my favorites as well, because of that type of mechanic. I really think Metroid Prime Remastered, again, it has some amazing utilization concepts and mechanics. I love the way how you're able to provide certain types of damage when it comes to certain beams that you are able to provide for Samus Aran. Like I said, you have the wave beam, you have the contact beam, you have the ice beam, and you have the plasma beam. All these different types of beams really utilize the potential of these beams in order to fight against your enemies that are susceptible to that type of beam contact towards them. And that's just fascinating. And that's why I was saying that this game does provide some RPG elements to it. And, you know, as I previously mentioned, I really think that there are games out there that do have some RPG elements, but they are not truly RPG. And like I said, I do thoroughly believe that. And like I said, I'm still going to hold true to that. But that's where I think that Metroid Prime Remastered, or even the original Metroid Prime, just does a lot of things right. And that's why I love about this game. This game just, it provides a lot of different ways of how you want to eliminate your enemies, and I think that's great. I love that utilization. I love the concept of it. And it's not just that, it's the world of this game. Like I said, there are different types of biomes, as you see here. You have a biome which is called the Fendrana Drifts. You have a biome known as Talon 4. You have all these different types of biomes in this game, and I think that's where this game really does an amazing job with its world building. And with the world building in this game, that's where the lore comes in as well, because the lore in this game really provides each of the biome in a unique type of story type of way. And that's why I think Metroid Prime just does a really good job with that world building and that story, and how it's all coincidingly very not inadvertently, but advertently putting it all together. And it's fascinating, and that's why I think Metroid Prime still holds up again today in 2023 if you end up playing this game on the Nintendo Switch Lite, OLED, or the original. So what I will put in here to all finish is that, do I highly recommend playing this game? Absolutely. Like I said, it's still one of the greats back from 2002. They did it, like I said, they did an amazing job of bringing this game back. And I'm really like I said, I was thoroughly enjoying it, and I'm still enjoying it thoroughly now. And I'm hoping that they do actually end up making a Metroid Prime 2 Remastered as well, which is also known as Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. But however, I do not know when that game is going to be, or if and when that game is ever going to come out. But I do believe that Metroid Prime 2 Echoes will come out as when it wants to come out. And it's kind of hard to say when it's going to be coming out, but however, I just really think that when it comes to Metroid Prime Remastered on the Switch, no matter what version you have, it's still a remarkable game. But anyways, much further ado, any comments or questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. Be more than happy to reply back if and whenever possible. And you guys have a good rest of your week. Peace.